Hello and welcome back to Prep Bites. In this video, we're gonna go in and basically create in our schemas. So the idea is we have to go in and figure out how exactly is it that we're gonna be storing all of our information. Okay, we'll kind of try to brainstorm a bit, okay, so that you guys can have a pretty good understanding on how exactly we are gonna be structuring all of our information. If there's anything additional that you feel like you might go in and end up needing, you can change the schema according to that, and your database will be storing information in the same manner. All right. So what we're going to do is we're going to be creating in our models, and within the models, we'll be specifying our schemas, and this is how it's going to go. Okay. So what we are trying to do is we are basically trying to go in and structure all of this information that our chat application is going to need. All right. And the way we'll be doing it is by creating these schemas, and these schema we're going to have multiple schemas, and these will be used to create in our models. Okay, so this is kind of how we'll be going in and working around with our database. So let's try to go in and first and foremost structure all of this information out. Okay, so the first piece of information that we are going to be needing for sure is the information about a corresponding chat. Okay, so we'll have a bunch of conversations that are going to show up, right? And each of this conversation is basically a chat. So what we want to do is, let's say we're going to first and foremost create a chat model, which will help us to go in and what should I say, like store information about a specific conversation that has happened between either two people or more than two people. Okay, because see, we are providing, we're going to be giving this feature that you're going to be able to talk to either a single person or to a group of people, right? So every single conversation, every single chat that is gonna go in and happen is gonna have a bunch of people who will be part of it, right? So what we're gonna do is the very first information we're gonna need to go in and store will be the chat name, okay? Because yeah, so there's a conversation that's happening. So if it is with a single person, okay, then we'll need to change the chat name. And if it is with a group of people, there'll be a group name that you're gonna be able to give, all right? Also, I'll say we can go in and use the same model for both our group as well as the one-to-one communication that's going to happen. So in order to do that, in order to facilitate that, we can create we can add in a Boolean value, I'll say, that can help us to go in and distinguish whether this particular chat, okay, whichever object that we have right now, because this schema is going to be just the structure of our object that is going to go of our JSON file that we're going to use to go in and store the information. Okay, so the idea here is that let's just go in and give it something like, if it is group chat. So this is going to be just a Boolean variable. So it's going to be Boolean value. Either it's going to be true or it's going to be false, and it's going to tell us whether it is a group chat or not. So if we are going in and figuring out if it's a group chat, then the amount of users who are involved within the chat can vary, right? So we can give this another property, which is going to be users. It's going to be an array of all the users. So user number 1, user number 2, user number 3, and so on. So all of these users are going to be put into this array of objects. So the concern here is, see, we will have to go in and think in terms of how exactly we have to structure this data, right? Okay, so because each user will have a bunch of information associated with them. So for each of these users, I'll suggest that we can go and create another model. So that's going to be our user model. Okay, so we're going to create a user model, which will help us to go in and keep track of information about the users who are part of a conversation. Okay, so whatever I'm specifying over here, let's just take this and get it connected to this. And let's just move this up a bit. Okay, so we'll have to go in and create up a user model as well. So there's going to be another model. Okay, I'm going to just change in the value here. There we go. Okay, so there's going to be another model that we'll have to end up creating for information in terms of each user. And so this is fine. And then if it is a group, okay, so there's also one other concern. If it is a group, then there will be an admin for that particular group, right? So if I'm just going to select this up, all right, let's just change it. So fourth one is going to be the group admin. Okay, so whomsoever initiated the chat, whomsoever is the first person to initiate the chat, or to basically go in and create the group is going to be a group admin, which is also going to be a user, right? So the same thing kind of falls into place here as well. So again, I'm just going to get it connected to here. All right. So this is good. Another thing would be that within our conversations page, if you guys remember this, we had a conversations page, right? And the idea was that within that conversations page, we're going to go in and show the list of conversations you had. And along with that, we also want the last message to show up, right? So in order to go in and have that, we are going to go in and add one more property over onto this particular model. And that is going to be the last message. Okay. So whichever is the last message, we'll go in and get it stored. So for these messages though, okay, so if let's say this is the last message, then for each message, also we're going to be needing a bunch of information. So we'll have to create in a separate model for our, I'll say, we'll have to go in and create a separate model for the message panel as well, right? So I'm going to say, yeah, so we'll create a message model. So every message is going to be having these sort of properties. So I'm just going to take this, let's just add this in here, and I'm going to make in a loop here. Okay, there you go. So this is going to be our most important, I would say, let me just select this up. Yeah, so the chart model is going to be the most important schema of ours, because it is kind of a chart application, right? What we're building is a chart application, and it's going to be filled with charts. Each chat will have a chat name, whether if it is a group chat or not, the bunch of users who are involved within the chat, who's the group admin, and the last message. Now, for basically specifying the users, we'll have to create up another module. Okay, we'll have to create up another model. Okay, so for each and every other user, what we can do is we can specify a bunch of information. So for example, what all will we need? So we're going to be needing the name. Okay, so I'm going to specify this here. Let's just change in the color here. Yeah, there you go. So for the user model, I'll suggest, let's just go in, and so every user is going to be able to go in and authenticate himself, right? So name, email ID, if it's needed, we can go with email. Okay. And the third, I would say, is going to be our password. Let's go with password. So each user, okay, each user is going to be having these three properties: name, email, and password. So and it's going to have an ID as well, right? So there'll be an object ID apart from this. Okay, so I'm just going to go in and we'll go in and fetch it as and such, because we are storing all of the information as objects, and each object will have an ID, right? So the fourth one, I'll say, it's going to be the object's ID. Okay, so that we can go in and classify each user over here. Now for the messages, I would say that it's going to be fairly simple. We are going to need the sender, the receiver, and then would be the chat content. Okay, so the chat content again is going to go in and come from, because we'll have to go in and specify the model, right? So again, the chat content is going to come into picture here. So what we can do is, I'll just go in and link this. So it's going to have chart content. So I'm going to just link it to this. And there you go. So this is kind of, I'll say, is a pretty good idea, or a pretty good structure on which how we can go in and structure our information. I know, so in total, we are just going to need 3 models. The first model is going to be the chat model, right? Just go in and take this in. So there's going to be a first model, which is going to be for the chats. Each chat is going to have its own name and a bunch of other information that we're going to need. And then the other 2 are going to be the user model, so that we can store information about each and every other user. All right. And then our message model. Okay, so this is going to be the last thing. All right. Pardon the really bad handwriting, but I hope you guys have got a pretty good understanding on how exactly we intend to structure our information. Okay, so these are the 3 pieces of information that we are going to go in and store. Okay, so let's go in and create them. Okay, so yeah, okay. So in order to go in and do this, I'm going to directly just jump into my VS Code over here. And what we are going to do is we'll be creating up a bunch of models, right? So I'm going to create up a new folder here, and let's just call this as models. All right. And within this, I'm going to start with our, let's start with our chat model. Okay, so I'm going to say chat model.js, all right? Not char model. Okay, let me rename this very quickly and change this to chat model.js. Okay. Now, creating these schema is fairly simple, because what we're going to do is we're going to be going in and using a particular library which is called as Mongoose. Okay, so this is a really good, I'll say, it's a pretty straightforward, schema based solution that you can use to go in and model your application data. Okay, so it's fairly easy to go in and use as well. So the very first thing that we're going to do is to install this particular package. Okay, so I'm going to go into my other terminal over here, and I'm going to say npm I mongoose. So this will go in and install whatever is the requisite dependencies, and we will be able to utilize this particular package. Okay, so so we're done installing mongoose. So the very first thing that I'm going to do is actually import it. So I'm going to say const mongoose is equal to require, and then I'm going to specify mongoose. There you go. So this is going to be the very first step, because if you're going to use something, import it first. Okay. So how exactly do we go and create the schema? It's really simple. So what we're trying to do over here is, so this is for the chat model, right? So we can use this particular function that is available to us, okay, which is called schema. Okay, so schema with a capital S, all right, and you can just go in and specify the structure of your model. So how exactly are you structuring the information? Okay, so what all information do we need? So I'm going to go back and forth and just try to replicate the structure that we just discussed. Okay, so the first information is going to be the chat name. Okay, so we're going to have chat name, and this particular information we are going to go in and just keep it up as string, because again there isn't much we need to go in and specify here. And then the next thing we're going to need, I would say, is whether it is a group chat or not. So I'm going to say is group chat. This we're going to go and keep it as a boolean value. Okay, so boolean. All right. The next is going to be an array. Okay, so because we need all the users who are part of this particular chat. All right, so in order to accommodate this, we're going to give another one, another of these properties. Let's call it as users. This is going to be an array which will contain bunch of users. Okay, so what we can do is, so we need to go and specify the data that's going to be stored up in this, right? So so what we want to do is we're going to be creating up another model here. Okay, so that's going to be for user. So user model.js. So what we'll specify for this user model. Okay, so this user model is going to be, we're going to be referring that particular user model for each of the users. Okay, so this is also fairly simple, because see, what I want to do is I want to go in and use the ID of those objects in order to identify each and every other user, right? So what we'll have, this is fairly easy to do as well. So I'm going to say mongoose.schema. I haven't created this yet, okay, this particular model yet, which is the user model, but we can go in and specify this. So I'm going to say object ID. Yeah. So this is what we're going to use. So in order to uniquely identify each and every other user, we're going to basically refer back to one of our models that we're going to create. Okay, so we'll be creating our user model here, and let's call it as user. Okay, for the time being, I'll say this is fine. So it's going to be an array of objects. Users is going to be an array of objects that we'll use to go in and store data of all the users who are part of the conversation. Then we want the latest message. Okay. So the orientation is there is a small offset, so it's kind of making me mess up the typing quite a lot. Okay, so we want a last message, but here again, for each message we have to go in and know the sender, receiver, and the conversation that has happened, right? So what we can do again is the same idea. Okay, so we're gonna go and create a new model here. Let's call it as message model.js, and we're going to go in and create a message model here. And the idea is going to be the same. Okay, so we're going to go in and fetch this. It's going to be the ID. So for each message, we're going to give it a unique ID. And for reference, let's just specify it as message. Okay, so we're going to go in and create this model here, and that's what we're going to be referring. Okay, so I'm going to put a comma here so that it, yeah, the syntax is correct. All right, so what else? What else do we have? We have, okay, the group admin, the conversation admin, right? So who initiated it and who have the control over that particular group. So for this, we're going to create one more prop, one more property here. Let's call it as group admin. And this, again, is going to be information about a person. So the same, okay? So I'm just going to copy this over here. And yeah, there you go. So that kind of takes us in. Apart from this, we are also going to want to, okay, so we'll think on this in a minute. So let's just go in and take care of our message and the user model. Okay, so the process is going to be the same again. First and foremost, I'm going to go in and import mongoose here. Let's do it for the message model as well. And then in order to go in and create our models, you can just go in and give it whichever name you want. I'm going to call it message model is equal to same thing, mongoose dot schema. All right, and here we need to go in and specify the schema for our message. Okay, so what other things do we need? We're going to need just three information, which is sender, okay, which is again going to be a person. All right, apparently. So I'm just going to go in and take this in, copy this, come back over here, paste it. There you go. So we have sender. We are going to have a receiver, paste it in, and then we'll have our message, right? So that's going to be for our chat. Okay, so let me just quickly go in and export this. All right, so I'm going to say const, so that the all of them are like interlinked together. So now that we've defined our schema, the next step is to create our models. So schema is done. So what we can do is we can go in and create our models. Again, the way to go in and do that is to easily just use the model function. It's as straightforward as it gets. There isn't nothing much in this. And now we can give it a name. Okay, so what's going to be the name of my model? So let's just call it as chat. Okay, and then the schema which we have over here, there's a chart model, paste it down over here, and this does it. So this goes in and creates our model, which is the chat model, and I need to go in and export it. So I'm going to say module dot exports, because we'll be needing to use it in multiple places. Model dot exports, and wait, okay, and then we'll say it's equal to chat. There you go. So this ensures that we are going in, and so we have a model over here. Okay, we'll have to create two other models with the name message and user, which is what we are doing in here. Okay, so the next one is going to be the message, right? So I'm going to say no, last message, right? Not last message, the message generally. Okay, or you can say not message, the chat that the people are part of. Okay, so here, so that would be this chat model, right? So again, the same thing. I'm gonna just go in and take an ID of that object. Apart from this, I have to go in and say this reference to the chat model that we have created here. Okay, so this is my chat model. I'm just giving in the reference, and there you go. So everything looks pretty sorted. And for each message, apparently, and for each conversation, apparently, we are going to go in and need to know when exactly did that object go in and get generated. So that, because we need to know the time as well when the last message was, when all of these operations are getting implemented, like sending a message or creating a group, we need to know the time as well. So for accommodating this, we're going to just go in and conjoin it with another property. Let's just call it as timestamp. And so we're going to be using this later up ahead in order to make it so that we know exactly when, at what particular time this particular message or this object got generated. So it's going to help us quite a bit to give that feature where you can go in and see when the message was sent and when was the last message read and all of that. Okay, so timestamp, we're going to give the same to a chart model as well, because each and every other chart is going to anyways going and end up having it. So there you go. Okay, so we're going to add a timestamp as well, which is basically when did that object get created as and such. Okay. All right, so this is done. Let's go in and get a message model imported. So I'm going to say const message. This is exactly what I used here as well, right? Message, yeah, okay. Message, and I'm going to say mongoose dot model. All right, so let's give it a name. I'm going to call it as message, and here I'm going to say message model. And we're going to get it imported. I'm going to say module, sorry, exported, module.exports is equal to message. Okay, there you go. So that's also done. And we're going to go in and take care of our user model as well. Here also, it's going to be the same process. I'm going to go with the name user model is equal to mongoose.schema. Let's just go in and quickly create up our schema. And here for each user, we are going to need some information, which is, so what all information are we going to be going with? We're going to go with name, email ID. Okay. Yeah. All right. So name is going to be one of the information. So this can be just a string. Okay. There is nothing much here. So I'm going to say type as string, and any other information that we're going to need. Yeah, so we're going to give it, another property. Let's call it as required, whether if it is absolutely important to specify this or not. Okay, so name, email. I'm just going to go in and copy paste this because for all of them, it's going to be the same. So copy, paste. So this is going to be for email, and this is going to be for our password. Password. There you go. Oh, no. Okay, I went for the type. Why did I go for type? Password. There you go. Okay, so this was also done. We're going to give the timestamp part to this as well. Copy this. Let's just get this copied. And I'm gonna, there you go. And now, the last process would be to go in and import our model that we created, right? So mongoose.model, we'll put a name. Let's give it as user, the same name. Yeah, there you go. User, and this is going to be the user model. We provided with the user model. And then the last thing would be to just export it. So I'm going to say module.exports is equal to user, and there you go. So this is it. This is the process where we have went in and we created our three models. And the thing here is, okay, so I wrote EAL here. So let's just quickly change this, rename, because some inconsistency in naming, and I might just go in and end up, oh, I used the same name in all of the places. Okay, so EL model message. Okay, yeah, this is good. Okay, so schema model, user model, and the message model. Okay, chart. So we have all of the models. So this is going to be the schema in which we're going to be storing up all of our information in our MongoDB database. Okay, so the idea was fairly simple. See, whenever you are going to go in and when it comes to the part where we want to go in and get certain functionality, I'll say structuring the information is kind of half the battle here. So in case we require some more data at any point of time, we can always come back and change up our schema. So that's one really good thing here. It's not like it's fixed forever. Okay, so we can go in and change up our schema later up ahead as well, in case we want to go in and change or add in some more properties. Okay, so that is it. This is how we're going to be structuring up our information. So in the next session, what we're going to do is we're going to go in and see how to integrate this with our database and play around a bit with it. And then we'll actually move on to going in and start implementing one functionality at a time. I highly recommend that you try to go in and add in as many functionalities as you want to this single application, so that you would know, okay, so because once you are able to go and utilize these freely available libraries and make work out of them, then it will give you a way better confidence on your abilities to go in and survive at this particular point. All right. So yeah, that's it for this particular video. We'll see you in the next one.